Reynolds from one of our main sponsors, WSP, very kindly sponsored us to help us be able to put this on at all. Patrick's going to tell us, if you don't know, WSP is a very large consulting organisation. Again, lots of data, lots of different applications. And Patrick's going to tell us how they use free and open source geospatial software in that context. Over to you, Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Johnny. So, as Johnny just said, I am Patrick Reynolds. I am one of the GIS consultants based out of our Manchester office. And as Johnny has just said, and I just Googled, WSP is a very large organisation. We have about 40,000 employees globally. Now, a bit of boring stuff about large companies, but essentially globally, there's a business, and then there's a business which is just the UK and I think New Zealand. And then within the business, within a business, there's businesses. And we are a team within a business, within a business, within a business. So we are the digital advisory team, and we are part of strategic advisory, strategic business unit. And we're a team of GIS professionals, data analysts, software developers, business analysts, project managers. So we're based in and around the UK, and we have a team in India. So there's quite a large hub in the Manchester office. We've got Liverpool, London, Bristol, Leeds, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and then quite a large team in Delhi as well. So what we do really is we work on large infrastructure projects primarily. We work on ecology-based projects, anything that does GIS or data management, we like to be involved with. Primarily, a lot of our projects are based around land, who owns what and where. Now, that is kind of a historical part of our business. We are trying to diversify out into more work streams, but a lot of the data that we work with and what we hold, and me in particular, is who owns what land and where is it. So I think I've said all this. We work on small projects, very large projects, and we're really into developing intelligent solutions to real world problems. So how does open source software fit into a modern consulting environment? As I wish I'd called it, not organization, because it sounds very clunky. It's very difficult, basically. We have challenges from clients. As a part of being a consultant or consulting, you have clients nearly all the time. Those clients, if they're sharing data or using data, they have stipulations or criteria that you have to meet. Often, that is, to use the dirty word of the day, that we use Esri software to share data with the clients of HS2, for example. We have to provide it in a geo-database within a certain schema. We then have even had to run FME on that data for them to accept it. So right there, we've got two non-free open source software issues. There's also the issues of data protection. As I said, we hold a lot of GDPR data, who owns what, where, and potentially what contentious projects have they signed up to. We, as the custodians of that data, have a moral obligation and a legal obligation to protect that, ensure that it is, protected in the back end, that no one can get into it, and also that we don't do anything with that data that we're not meant to do. So, although it is PostGIS Day, unfortunately, we don't get to use much PostGIS because its security standards legally we're not allowed to use. And as I mentioned before about clients, sometimes our clients are not very digital. So we like to think we're top tier, or we are top tier GIS professionals and data analysts and software devs, but often our clients are not. So we have to think about who's using this information. So just to give you an example, yesterday I was in a meeting in London where they were reviewing physical A1 PDF plans. Now I had the same data on a web map in front of me on my laptop, but they're looking at the physical plan. So they're the challenges. That's the doom and gloom. So now we can move into the more fun, happy stuff, where we do get to use open source software. And really that's where the end user, the client, is a viewer of the data, not a user. So we don't need to share data, we just need to show them data and use it to visualize, a web map or a web app or something similar. So moving into the dangerous word for any presentation of live demonstrations. So I may demo this one, but I'll probably come back to it at the end just because it has a slight chance of GDPR breach. So maybe we shouldn't. We have a system called Consents. Now, Consents replaced the historic program that we had, where we had a huge amount of data about who owned, I say this phrase a lot, apologies, who owned what land and where. We'd been working on this project for 5+ years. We knew everything about it. We also had a very comprehensive Esri-based web map where the user could look at the web map, they could get a parcel number, they could go to our front-end software, they could type in the parcel number and they'd get all the information. Now, that was really quite a clunky system. The more modern solution, more elegant solution which we built, I say we, not me, much smarter people than I built. I should have said at the start of this presentation, I built nothing that we are going to demo. I am just the mouthpiece, basically. But we built a system which has an embedded web map. You select the parcel on the web map, it highlights it, all the information about that land appears at the bottom. You could also do the inverse, you could search for it, it would zoom you to it, and then all the associated information would pull through. Now that's built in Azure. Its spatial data rendering is done in GeoServer, map interface, GeoLayers, and all the clever stuff at the back end that pulls the information through is all SQL triggers. Now, into one I can show you. England's economic heartland. This is something that was developed by, I think, a member of our team called Colin Gray. And what this is, it was built for transport, or who we call transport engineers, modelers, and they had an issue where they couldn't get the hyperlink to work. They had an issue where they were using modeling software, and on that modeling software, they essentially, I don't know if anyone's seen transport modeling software, but it's just nodes. There was no visual information. So what they had was they looked at the model, saw the nodes and the transport, and then they looked at a web map and then tried to marry up the two. What this does is essentially combines the two into one. Now, apologies, you'll have to bear with me while I log in. Well, I didn't think that would work first time. So here we've got a basic web interface. Once I've done the demo, I'll run back through what it's built on. But essentially what it allows you to do is to show transport scenarios. So these scenarios would be something that the transport team had built in their transport software. They provide them to us, and we essentially allow it to visualize the actual information. So here we are viewing a transport model of England's economic heartland, which is sort of Cambridge, Oxford, up home. Well, you can see we're all geographers, well, most of us are geographers. And here we're able to flip between the visualizations. So this is showing roads, volume, and capacity. We're able to actual flow changes to show how many the actual roads, how many vehicles would be predicted to be traveling along certain roads at certain times between peak time. And we can also change the scenario to display different information. Now, that's, well, as I said, I'll come back to how it's built. But as well as this, we also have contextual data which can be overlaid to allow all the information that the users would need to be in one location and to save them from having to flick from A to B to C to try and figure out their transport modeling problem. Now, back to the presentation. So, although I just said there wasn't much PostGIS, I forgot about this one. So we're in PostGIS, PostgreSQL, we're in GeoServer, the map interface is Leaflet, and the server side is Django, GeoDjango. Another example we have is what we call Core GIS. So this hyperlink works. said, live demos always go wrong. There it is. Just bear with me. It's going to take 2 minutes to type that out. So, as I try and fail miserably to get this to work, Core GIS is a program which we created, or as someone else created. Again, it's built off Postgres PostGIS. It does spatial data rendering on the fly via Mapbox, map interface, Mapbox, user interface React, and the custom web services, as well as isochrone generation, things like that, is all done by a fast API. If this doesn't work again, I'm going to give up and just talk about it. Yep. So one thing that I need to come back to about using open source software in a consulting environment is that what I'm probably displaying here is open source and free. A lot of people in this room would think that that's not open source and free. I think the Mapbox, for example, I'm fairly sure charges, and a few others on this list do charge. I think when you're in a professional environment, you have to have a bit of compromise on those issues. There are things that we simply, can't do legally and morally, and there are things that we would like to do, but we can't because we're not allowed. But I had hoped to show you 3 examples of what we had done instead of showing you one. But it comes back to what I said earlier. It's about where we can, we will, and it's mainly when we have a viewer, not a user of data, that we're able to share it in that way. Would anyone like to ask a question while I battle with my gorgeous demo?
Question for Patrick? Yes, please.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think there are any kind of institutional barriers or things that the government could do, for instance, to help? Because I know you were saying about, as I work in consultancy as well, we have similar issues with sort of projects mandating certain standards. But, and obviously, bearing in mind what's been said before, some of this stuff is free and requires this significant infrastructure support behind it. But do you think it's the sort of level playing field with the projects that you work on? Is there anything that the government can do to make it easier to kind of for people to use open source software?
Yeah, I think that they need to update the legislation that states what is acceptable and what isn't. So, legal standard for legal plans for boundaries is OS. Now, OpenStreetMap is probably just as accurate in most places as OS, but the legal standard is OS. There's lots of things that we do that the government dictates that we have to have a certain standard. And I don't think they're reviewing if things like PostGIS, if QGIS, if they're up to the same standard as the competitors like Esri or Azure or others. I think it's just something that's not even on their radar. They're not interested in. And if I was only, there's no money in it for them, so they might not want to, basically.
That's something that Geospatial should.
I'd be pleased to know I haven't made any more progress in the show.
Planning manual. You don't use an OS map. Planning. Even though the other versions are just.
Yeah.
The government only have OS.
It's on mine, so you could share.
Sorry, cancel the streaming.
Well, you can toggle screen share. I can just share my screen. I can just share mine, can't I?
Yeah, give it a go. Don't worry about sharing.
Any more questions or? All good.
I've got one more. Kirsty, just don't worry about sharing it, Kirsty. Just get it on the screen. Are the kind of barriers that Richard has identified in his project, do they affect your decisions? Are there costs to running open source? Because you've given a lot of reasons why you wouldn't use them. Do costs come into that a lot for you?
Yes, I think we have to, as a business, we do have to look to make money, and the cost mainly of someone's time to set it up is the main sort of blocker for us. Not blocker, that's what we would look to charge for. We wouldn't necessarily be looking to charge for software that we're not paying to use, if that makes sense.
On my Windows. So, where's my mouse? No. That's not my mouse. Ooh, doesn't like that, does it, when I press it?
You just,
Can't click on it, but it's just not.
if you double click at the top, that's just all your windows. They're small because this is the bigger screen.
Oh,
So if
do you
you
want to sort it out? There we go. Oh, well done. Is that the wrong tab?
Easy as that.
Oh, now you have to watch me type the password. The
Password what?
Are we still streaming? We are.
Oh, yeah.
The number of views has actually gone up.
Yeah. Everyone's messaged each
Everyone
other.
wants to know
Come
what
on, look at the
password is.
calendar.
Okay, I think unfortunately we're not going to be able to demo that. So sorry about that. But thank you for listening to me ramble on and not show you what I intended to.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes before the next talk starts. That's a stream. So if Kirsty sets that up, we've got a couple of minutes. Is there another question? No, quick insight into life in a large consulting environment.
Johnny, it goes back to like a huge so at the moment, you go into our GIS program, everything, you can press a button and it pushes it out.
Yeah.
Fairly seamless. And provides quite a lot of good analytics. Most of the stuff, really, you don't even need to plug in. Then you go away and spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Get anywhere near. It seems like there's a huge gap. The community just kind of think, what's the alternative to the RGS online option that allows a similar workflow to like, it kind of needs that QGIS plugin.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Most of this is just rendering, visualizing data. Nowhere near it.
Yeah. I mean, that might be something for FOSS to be looking to fund next year. So we still have a LiDAR, I think we're looking for this year, QGIS. That kind of functionality that Arc Online has got. I think you're right. It is much different, isn't it?
There's
QGIS
no
to
alternative.
no.
Right.
Yeah, it's a team of people, or it's paying us, one of the companies that supports QGIS to do that, and then doing the big list. But you're right. Maybe we'll make it. Can't you make it? You can use all your millions of pounds back. Let's also sort that out. No problem. Yeah, but yes.
So, following on from what was asked at the opening presentation, and kind of combined with your question, do you reckon that's another reason actually don't want much to do with QGIS because they don't want to support someone, even though QGIS does a lot of things that potentially be useful for actually to incorporate if they did the partnership or?
Yeah, I mean, I have no insight into Esri. I must hold my hand up, but I think you're probably right. I mean, first and foremost, QGIS is a significant, commercial competitor. A lot of organisations are shifting to QGIS because, for the first time, it poses a high quality, relatively easy to use, certainly in comparison with our product. Whereas previously, like Tim was saying, we had grass, and that's very powerful. You have to be pretty, you have to know what you're doing. Anyone who's capable of any GIS can quite comfortably use QGIS. So I can see there's probably a business motivation for not to get involved. And I think there are other issues. The famous one in the QGIS viewshed documentation, the QGIS often gets different answers to ArcGIS. So if you run a viewshed, you'll only get quite a different one. Think how many planning applications are relying on that analysis, how many appeals, how many millions of pounds. So there's probably a big tension there. You can see what why QGIS gets that answer, but we don't know why. So I can see a tension, but it would be interesting to try and engage them. Microsoft engage with the open source community quite to the extent they eventually go GitHub.
Well, it's not with Apple then. What's the viewer fire? One of the viewers most commonly viewed for videos, Apple didn't want to work with them. So they wanted to develop their own, and then soon realized it wasn't as easy as they thought it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
And no one supported the format, and it meant a lot of stuff you stream on your phone you couldn't do.
Yeah.
Apple.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the benefits to the community if people started talking to each other would be tremendous. It just from the data formats being compatible and things like that would be brilliant. So,
You don't want to work on your laptop anymore. HDMI.
well,
Just put it in it, won't like it's a good day, that was registered for that. Wasn't coming up on the big screen.
right. Another go. One thing we've definitely learned a lot about today is how not to try and stream a conference series.
Oh no, that's the next talk.
I think we're doing all right, actually. So it's challenging.